kind of a 3D picture. So the first thing we have to do is if we are going to find from A to B, I would like you to put that this is going to be down here. We're going to call this point D and this point C. Okay? So when we are applying our Pythagorean theorem, just like you were actually doing these application problems, which was number 29 was an application, 36, 37, 38, those were all application in our homework from last night. This one also. And when you look at this picture, the first thing that you want to do is you need to find the length from A to C. So in order to find A to B, first step, please put down, you need to find the length from A to C. So we are going to find the length of A to C. Now, I want you to notice that then when they write the word length, then they call it a segment. So they put length of A to C. If you want to just find length and you use the letters A to C next year when you're in geometry and you're talking about a length, a lot of times they'll just use AC and they won't put a segment over the top. That means we are talking about that length. So if I look at the length from A to C, first thing I notice is that I go from A to D and I go to C going back. It's here. What is the length from A to D? 12. And I am trying to find this length from A to C, right? And I know from C to D is 3. So right now I need to start this with my right triangle, and I am going to write over here. So you have 2 steps. First we're going to find length AC, and then our second step is we are going to use the length of AC to find the length of AB. Okay? So there's 2 steps in this problem. So when we start this first one, you are going to start, and I'm okay if you start with 3 squared plus 12 squared. Please put equals AC to the second power, because we're finding that length from A to C. So 9 plus 144, you're going to put that in your calculator. AC squared is equal to, what do we get, Micah? What length am I going to get? 153. Now, here's the thing where a lot of you like to use your calculator, and you do not want to do that at this point. You do not want to use your calculator to find the square root. You want to keep it exact. So we have 153. We know that's not a perfect square. So when I look for the length of AC, the length of AC exactly is going to be what, Whitney? What do you do to get rid of the square? Square root? Square root of 153. We have found the length from A to C. This is the square root of 153. Okay? I want you to notice that in our picture, when we were looking at it, we now are going to use another right triangle. And this time your right triangle is going to go from A to C, and you're going to go up to B. Do we know how far it is between C and B by looking at the original picture? Yeah. We know, Ben, it is how far between C and B? This length from C to B. 4. Because I have 4 over here, so it's 4 everywhere for our height, right? And we just found that AC was the square root of 153. And we are asked to find the length from A to B. Okay? So we are now going to set it up, and we are going to put 4 squared, that's our A squared, plus the square root of 153, and we are going to square that, equals the length from A to B squared. Do you see why I want to keep it exact at 153? What is the square root of 153 squared? It's 153, right? So I do not want to put a decimal and get a decimal and square a decimal, and it's not going to be exact. You do not want to find, so in this case we are going to take 16, correct, plus 153. So we're going to have 16, 4 squared, plus 153 is equal to AB squared. So now, lady, we're going to add the 16 and the 153, and we end up with Anyone recognize it? Yeah, like, oh, perfect square, right? So that's what AB squared is equal to. So what is my length from A to B? AB has a length of 13. Since they didn't give us a label going around here like feet, centimeters, inches, we just put 13 units. Because we don't know what it is. And usually it's not going to be unit squared, because unit squared would be when we are dealing with area. Okay? So you're going to have 4 questions like that in your homework where you're finding that missing one. The key thing is, as you look back at these notes, is you always have to find first this length down here. So when you are looking at the problem, the first thing you're going to find is here. You have to find the AC. That's your first step. And then once you have found that, your second step is to use this length of 153 and plug it in and square that. So it's usually going to be a square root that you're going to square. Okay? That's almost all of them as you're doing to get the exact answer. In this one, you're going to be asked to find the volume of the cone. So very similar to that one with the area of our flag. When you are looking at this problem and we are trying to find the volume, our final answer has to be in units cubed, because we're going to find volume. And we know that the diameter is 6 inches, which means our radius happens to be 3 inches. And we know this slant height, so next year in geometry you do a lot of stuff with area and surface area. But so we have 3 inches and 6 inches. So the first thing we have to do is we need to find this height before we can do anything else, because the formula has height and radius. We already have the radius part of our formula, we need the height. So we are going to start off, and again, you're going to keep it exact. So our right triangle, sometimes it's helpful for some of you to draw that right triangle. That is your 3, and you have 6, and this is your h in this case, because for height. So 3 squared plus 6 squared equals h squared, yes?
No. 3
No.
squared plus b squared equals.
So it is really easy for a lot of you to just start plugging numbers in and not think about the side longest has to be our 6 has to be over here. So just slow down a little when you're looking at your problems. So we have 9 plus h squared equals 36. And again, we're going to keep it exact. So Kate in the middle here. When we subtract 9 from both sides, we end up with what?
27.
H squared is 27. And so Maria, I want to keep it exact, and h is going to equal square root of 27. So square root of 27. This should not be a curved line down here at all. This should be nice, like a pointed and 90 degrees. So some of you, how you make your notation on your quizzes and homework, it's really hard to read and you get really sloppy. And so we're going to keep square root 27. We're going to go to our formula, because if you were going to be finding the volume of something, you want to be exact. No matter what your profession is, you want it as close to the exact as possible. So in this case, we are going to start with our formula, which says 1/3 times pi times our radius, which was 3 squared, times our height, which is the square root of 27. And you are going to put this whole thing, pi, so you're going to start off with 1, you're putting in divided by 3. If you don't have a calculator, grab one. You need a calculator. You what?
You need to make sure the 1 divided by 3 is in parentheses.
It does not have to be in parentheses. 1 divided by 3, then you're going to go times, and your calculator, most calculators, a bit scientific, it has a pi button. So if we are finding my pi button is up here, so find where your pi button is. You might have to hit the second to get to the pi. It might be above something. Okay. So I'm going to hit pi. Okay. I am now going to take it times 3 squared, or could I just put times 9? Yeah, or I could put times 3 squared, right? So times 9. Or I could put times 3 squared, and then I'm going to put in times, and I believe on my calculator up here, I have to get this square root first. So times the square root Nope, that took the square root of 9. So on my calculator, I have to hit that square root button afterwards instead of before. So I am going to clear this. So I had 1 divided by 3 times pi times 3 squared 9 times 27. And this is where I am taking the square root of 27 and hitting equal so that my exact answer, and now they tell us to round it. Usually it's going to ask you to round it to the nearest hundredths or tenths. So my volume is going to be equal to 48.97, and I do need a label with this. And anytime we're working with volume, it's inches cubed. So one of the reasons that we have a volume problem up here and this box problem, these are two very heavy 8th grade standards. Earlier this year, our algebra classes, or our math 8 did this, and when you take your state testing, and state testing isn't the math testing, but the NBSA that they do on the computer, we will be doing that sometime this spring. There's a lot of stuff with finding the volume or explaining how that is, okay? So, other story problems. Some of you, my hint is draw the picture on your paper as you are looking at these. They are not intended to be hard problems as you are looking at it. So in this case, it says as you look at this one, you and your friend live on different sides of the lake. The roads along the lake are shown. How far is your friend's house by boat? So if you're going from your house to your friend's house, we should be looking at setting up a formula and doing with 0.5 squared, right? That is going to be a leg. My other leg is 1.2. So take your calculator out and put in 0.5 squared plus 1.2 squared. That is going to be equal to c squared in this case. And so if we are looking at finding c, take out your calculator and please do some multiplication for me. We ended up with how much? 1.69. And so when we take this, so that's what c squared was equal to, right? And so to find c, we are going to take the square root of that, which means 1.3. And in this case, we're going to label it with miles. Yesterday, some of you neglected your labels. So when you have the story problems, you want to make sure you're doing labels. Do it in your homework, so you do it on your quizzes. This one says, how far is the marina by boat from your house? So this time, you are going to be looking at A being 0.4 squared plus B being 0.6 squared equaling c squared. So c squared should be equal to, as we are looking at that, when you put it in your calculator, what did you get, Taylor? C squared? 0.52. And now you're going to take the square root of both those. So the square root, c is equal to the square root of 0.52, which, when we are looking at that, comes out to equal, Mallory, what'd you get? 0.72. And so that doesn't make sense. That this should be less than the square root of that. Well, if you check it, 0.7 times 0.7 times 0.72 times 0.72, right? You put that in your calculator and square it, it does give you 0.52. It's kind of like 7 squared is 49, so it's a little over 7 squared. That next page down in your notes, you are going to be asked to find the distance between 2 points. Pythagorean theorem works wonderful when you're looking for the distance between 2 points. So the first thing you want to do is you want to draw a nice straight line, because the shortest distance between any 2 given points is a straight line. So we're going to take and draw a straight line connecting our 2 points, and then we're going to make a right triangle. Does it matter if you make your right triangle below or if you decide to make it above? Doesn't matter. Okay? Does not matter which way you make it. But we can easily count that this is going from this point at 3, right? This is located at 3, 1. This one was located at -3, -2. That this distance here for our y is a distance of 3, and our distance of our x is a distance of 6. Maria.
Isn't the bottom one located on -3, -3?
Nope.
Oh, wait, no,
Negative
never mind.
3 and then down negative 2. Over 3 up 1. Okay. So when we are looking at this to find that length, 3 squared plus 6 squared equals our c squared. And then you are going to be 9 plus 36. And Jack, when I add 9 plus 36, I'm ending up with 45. Which means Dylan's C is going to be equal to, first exact would be what?
6.7.
First exact would be, you gave me the approximate. So if I was looking exact, we would have what? Square root of,
5.
so if I have C squared equals 45,
45.
square root of 45. As I look at that, I want to simplify that. What perfect square can I factor out, Abby? First, Abby, right in front of Dylan. We're going down the road. What's 9 times 5, right? So if I asked you, what is this in simplest form? Square root of 45. We could rewrite this as 3 square root 5. And yes, a lot of times it makes more sense to put our approximately equal. And in this case, Dylan, this is when you said, what did you get? For length?
7.
6.7, right? Does that sound about right? So 6.7, and in this case, we would just go units. So if we're rounding it to the nearest 10. So on the top of the next page, you are going to find these next 2 lengths. Okay? So they're asking you which one is longer. What I want you to do is show me your work for finding AB by making your right triangle and CD. And they really are not that far apart in their lengths, but they are. One is longer, so you're asked which one is longer and then how much longer. So if I'm looking at finding CD, right? CD squared is going to be equal to, if you would start me off, Abby, what would you have had? 7 squared plus 2 squared. If I am trying to find AB, okay, AB squared is going to be equal to 5 squared. I agree with the 6 squared,
It's 4 squared plus 6 squared.
but not 5, yeah. So please do those. Is going to be CD. It's not that much longer, right? 7.28 versus 7.21. So how much longer is it? 0.07 units longer. Something along that line. So if I was going to draw that picture with the Washington Monument, what information are they telling us? So if you think of the monument, and we think of going out from the base of the monument, right? Anyone been to the Washington Monument a little bit? No? Those are many years ago. That's super cool. But, so you're standing, so what we want to think of is, okay, if we're looking at this height, right? And we want to think of making a right triangle. So if I was going to look at this, they're telling you, if you read the question, if you would, Kylie, or the problem.
You are standing 500 feet from the Washington Monument. Using a rangefinder on the ground, you measure the distance from your location to the top of the monument to be 747 feet. Find the height of the Washington Monument to the nearest point.
So, the 500, that's our base, right? That's how far you are standing from the monument. This is your 500 feet. The 747 is the hypotenuse, or like hypotenuse, right? They tell us that this is, when you measure it, 747 feet. Okay? So, if we are setting that up, and we are writing that one, Elena, tell me what I should start with.
500 squared plus b squared equals 747 squared.
So we're gonna put these numbers in our calculator. We put 500 squared in our calculator. We get 250,000 plus b squared. If we are putting in 747 and we're squaring that, Liz, what are you gonna get? We are gonna be subtracting 250,000 on both sides. B squared is going to be equal to, and again, they ask us to round our answer when we are doing this, so our B squared is 308,009. So when you take that on your calculator, so hopefully when you're doing this on your calculator, you're doing the 747 squared minus the 500 squared, get that answer here. Then you are taking that square root. So when you take the square root of both sides, B is approximately 554.98. We're rounding it, but they tell us to round to the nearest foot. So my final answer should be about 555 feet tall. Okay. Your homework, there are the problems on your page that you are going to be taking